Alright, so number 2 says Stephanie shares a YouTube video with 4 of her friends. The next day, those 4 friends share it with 4 more people, and the pattern continues. So you've heard this phrase viral video, right? Like a video goes viral, right? So that means that, only a couple people have heard of it, and then bam, it blows up. A bunch of people have heard it. So what it starts off with is that she tells day 1. By the way, again, we're going to leave a little gap for day 0 because we start our stopwatch at 0. So so day 1 she shared it with 4 people, but then those 4 people shared it with 4 other people. So you can kind of get a visual, right? So there's one person, and then they share it with 4 people. But then each one of those 4 people, right? So there's 1, now there's 4. Now each one of those 4 people then each shared it with 4 people apiece themselves. So what's happening here, it's not just increasing by 4 each time. Now you've got 4, 8, 12, 16. So now there's 16 people that have seen it. So notice what's happening here is this is not adding by the same thing each time. This is being multiplied by the same thing each time. So this particular sequence, right, because there is a pattern, it is a sequence. This particular sequence would be geometric, right, because we're multiplying by the same thing. So we said that, okay, so if it kept going, then 4 times 4 would be 16. So if we said times 4, right? And then what if we said times 4 again? Well, 16 times 4, which would be 64. And by the way, it's not mental math here necessarily, so there's nothing wrong with doing a quick check here if we need to put that in the calculator. 16 times 4. Yep, we get 64. Right, so it's better that you be right. Now, so we said that though we start the stopwatch at 0. So what does that mean? How many people had she shared it with at time 0? Right, so before she shared it with these 4 people, how many people had she shared it with? So you might say, well, she didn't share with anybody. Well, let's look at the pattern, though. So we're saying what times 4 would give you 4? Because this would be times 4. Well, what times 4 gives you 4? Well, 1 times 4 gives you 4. So she basically, I don't know if this makes sense, but she shared it with herself, right? So before she shared it with anyone else, think of it as that she shared it with herself. So if we thought of, again, these are days, and these are, I don't know, let's say shares. So, so if we took these days here, so at day 0, there was just one person that had seen it, which was her. And then she shared it with 4 more people. Right, so let's say, and then after that, it went up to 16. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You see this is going way off the graph, right? And then day 3, she shared it with 64. Well, that goes way off my graph. But, so you get the idea of something that starts off small, and then it goes up fast rather quickly. So that's what we mean by something that's geometric. We say that it has, another word that we've used is exponential. So that's exponential growth, right? It just means that it's a big jump, right? It's not jumping by the same thing, but there's a big jump. So what we want to do is that we want to then figure out, well, what's basically happening here each time. So, well, what's happening is that how it's changing is that to get the one you want, you take the one before it, and then what are you doing? Well, you're just multiplying by 4, right? That's all that's happening. So remember, the recursive is just describing how it's changing. Now, what we want to do is we want to look for a shortcut. So we're going to take where it starts, which in this case is 1, and then what's happening each time is that we're not adding, we're multiplying. And we're multiplying by what? Well, we're multiplying by 4. And then on that last one, we just, we put an n on there. But let's figure out what that might look like. So let's kind of break down that table. So you've got 0 and 1, and then you're taking that 1 and you're multiplying it by 4, which gives you 4. But then you're taking that 1 from the 4 before the day before rather, 4 more, right, which gives you 16. And then you've got times 4, times 4, and times 4, right, which gives you 64. So look at how many times you've multiplied by 4, right? So it looks like if I wanted to know, well, what about the 100th day, right? I want a shortcut. Well, it looks like what I would have to do is I would take 1, right, because it started with her, times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and then blah, 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 blah. Do that 100 times. Well, so we have a shortcut for that, which is instead of saying 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and then on forever like that, we have a shortcut for that, which is that what we can use is we use exponents as a shortcut for multiplication. So this would just end up being 4 to the 100, right? If I wanted to know how many people after 100 days, it just would be 4 to 100. Because see how this was 3, 2, and then just 1. So whatever the number of days are, so let's just call it n days, then it just would be 1 to the times 4 to the n. So that's what my explicit is going to be. Now I could simplify this just down to 4 to the n, right? Or I could leave it that way. Either way, it's the same thing. All right, so go ahead and stop here. Number 2 on the right is going to be geometric.